So, chapter 4, we are on the portion, the actions of the enlightened, not binding, verses 19 to 24. So, what we have to understand in this portion is not just how the enlightened function, but as I've been constantly telling you, the Gita also explains how you can reach that state, right? There's no point discussing what that state of enlightenment is if it doesn't relate to how you can reach it. So, as you gain the knowledge of the self, as you gain this knowledge of Vedanta, your thoughts start shifting to the higher. The highest is the self, or the higher values: selfless action, devotion, knowledge. These are the three high values of life. And what happens with that? You start becoming self-sufficient. You derive happiness from within. This is what you all should understand. And when you derive happiness from within, you're not dependent upon the fruit of action. That's what he's talking about here. You enjoy the very performance of your actions in the world. So whatever action you need to do, that gives you supreme satisfaction. That's what he says in the 20th verse. Ever content, depending on nothing, having renounced attachment to the fruit of action. So all this can only happen if you find satisfaction in doing the action. If I find satisfaction in teaching you, this is the action right now, then why am I bothered what I'm getting out of it? What's going to happen in the future? So this is what you have to learn. You have to learn to shift your happiness from the result to the action per se. Because there is no greater satisfaction than doing what ought to be done in life. Krita, Kritya, he says later in the Gita, doing what ought to be done. He says that's the supreme satisfaction. So right now, what is the world? Everybody goes to work for a reason, a salary, a bonus. They don't like the work. Thunder, no? That's what you heard. A thunderstorm going on. So nobody likes the work. So they hate doing what ought to be done. So what is the result? The whole world's definition of happiness is what? How can I get away from my work? It's ironic. Weekend vacation. What is weekend vacation? Getting away from what I have to do. So this is what he's saying in the 20th verse. A person of enlightenment is supreme. He already has that supreme happiness. So he doesn't depend. But we can also practice it. If we learn to find satisfaction in the action, you're not dependent. Imagine your life. It doesn't matter to you if it's Monday or Friday. We have one of the t-shirts, TGIM. Somebody asked me here when I was walking with that mistake I made. I didn't realize it. Is that a Institute of Management or something? They thought it's I said, no, it's thank God it's Monday. They thought I'm mad, they went to it. You understand? Why is it TGIF? Why is it thank God it's Friday? So ask yourself. So he does not do anything though engaged in action. So, what happens if your action is desire ridden, selfish? Every time you act in that way, see, you don't understand the repercussions. The thought builds on another thought. So every time you indulge in a thought, it creates more thoughts in the future, more vasanas. But when you work for a higher purpose, your existing vasanas, desires get destroyed. So doing anything means they create no further impressions, no further vasanas. So right now, since we have been indulging indiscriminately in thoughts after thoughts all our life, we are nothing but a bundle of desires. Tremendous power because of our own indulgence. So you find it almost impossible to shake it off. When you get the knowledge, you can raise yourself. So that's what he talks about in the 20th verse. And he continues in the same vein in the next few verses. So here he talked about the harmony with reference to the fruit of action, external. In the 21st verse, he talks about what is happening within him. So before we continue, any questions? All clear so far? 21.
निराशीर्यतचित्तात्मा त्यक्तसर्वपरिग्रहः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्.
Hoping for nothing. Nirashi, with mind and body controlled, having relinquished all possession, doing mere bodily action, he incurs no sin. So again, you must understand the base. He's talking here about an enlightened soul. So when you have the supreme happiness within, obviously you don't need other things to make you happy. Now, if you want to know what is the biggest misunderstanding of Vedanta, this is what it is. People look at these verses, hoping for nothing, relinquishing all possessions. They say, forget this. Obviously, I don't blame them. But what you don't understand is because you have a higher happiness, the lower is not important. See, it's like saying, in your case, it's like saying relinquishing all toys. Doing mere bodily action with your children, playing toys with them. You incur no sin, means there's no mental indulgence. So you give an example, it becomes clear. An adult has no desire for toys. There's no craving for their possession. But in case they have to play with their children, they play as an obligation. This is the life of the enlightened. They have no need for anything because they have everything. So as an obligation, even if they have possessions and property and family, they just serve. They use it as a means to serve. That's what he's saying here. There's no hope, means there's no dependence on anything. You've got to understand this. See, yesterday I was trying to explain to somebody as a parent, tormented, that their children are not doing well, or see, everything you do, there's a hope. The child should come out successful. Your focus should be on doing the best you can. You have no control over that. That is their life. They just can't understand. They suffer all their life. So hoping for nothing doesn't mean you don't work, but you understand your control. What is in your hands is the action. How are you responsible for somebody else's mind? You can't force that. So do mere bodily action in the sense you just use your body to do your obligations in life. You incur no sin. Again, no vasanas, no desires are created. In fact, you reduce your existing vasanas. So all we are today is a sum total of all our thoughts and actions in the past, from today backwards. Do you know that? That's what we are today. So you're constantly creating more and more without realizing it. So you set your goal for a higher purpose. This is the intellect. The mind and body needs to be controlled, in the sense anything that goes against your purpose, you say no. You have to have that control. You have to have that conviction. We compromise all the time. All the time you compromise on what you believe is right in life. And relinquished all possessions, there is no possessiveness, there is no dependence. But if the possessions are required to fulfill your purpose, you do it. You use it. It's like having a hotel room attitude in your own house, right? My house, my house. It's just a place to use for a reason. Why are you getting attached? What a life. What a life you'll have. Just take whatever is necessary from this world to fulfill your purpose. That is what it means. Relinquished all possessions. How can you relinquish all possessions? You can't live otherwise. So it doesn't mean that, obviously. Krishna, who's giving this lecture, himself had a palace. He was a prince. So you need possessions. But why do we get attached to it? Just understand it's a means to an end. That's about all. Got it? He incurs no sin. There is no mental agitation at all. So sin, those of you who are not aware, sin in Vedanta refers to mental agitation. Sin is the opposite of divinity. Divinity is bliss. Therefore, sin is anything opposed to bliss, which is mental agitation. And mental agitation comes out of what? Out of this ego come these desires, egocentric desires. This is sorrow. So as long as you're not in the self, you're in a state of sin. Just a question of less or more. The self is absolute bliss. The moment you leave the self, obviously there's sorrow. You've left the state of bliss. That's what it means. So desire is nothing but the manifestation of sorrow. So as long as we are not in the self, we are in sorrow. That's it. Constant. The Upanishads, he says, tapatritaya dushitam. The threefold fever. All the time you're suffering from fever, means desires at the level of the body, the mind, and the ego. These are the threefold desires. Clear? Hmm? Yeah.
Sometimes we are doing some actions which are not conducive for our spiritual growth, but then we are justifying by mind, and it feels like it's not even creating mental agitation. So, why is that?
Sometimes you're doing actions not against your. Sometimes only. Most of the times you're doing actions conducive for spiritual growth. Kamal hai. Most of is it. So first I want to just correct that. Now you ask, what is it?
So, it seems like it's not creating mental agitation.
It's not creating mental agitation when you're doing actions. See, what you must understand, you recognize mental agitation only if it goes beyond a point. Because mental agitation is the default state. So we are acclimatized to it. If you could recognize the state you're in, you think you'll remain in it. It's not possible. See, imagine if you're born in a slum, person who's born there, who's lived there, can they recognize they're in a slum? That stench of the sewage is normal. You understand? Only if the sorrow goes beyond a point, somebody is hitting them, which is not normal, then they'll recognize they're in agitation. Right? But a person who's gone out of the slum, suppose he comes back, immediately you'll see the stench. So you have to be somewhat evolved to understand what state you are in. Right? Now is all normal. Every day is normal. What is the problem? Fighting with the spouse is normal. Every day you're fighting. Let argument's sake. So it's a normal. And then anniversary, happy anniversary. Whole year fighting. This is absurd. So you've normalized suffering, acclimatized. So you don't recognize it. So you'll be surprised as you grow spiritually, the mind becomes calm. When there's a little agitation, you recognize, now why am I disturbed? But you have to be somewhat. So till then, use the knowledge and go by the intellect. This is not conducive for my spiritual growth. You say no to it, right? In fact, doing the right action will agitate you because you're so wrong, you're so acclimatized to doing the wrong action. That's the whole problem in the spiritual path. Why do you think it's so difficult for people to stick to this? You know how many thousands of people have come for these lectures over all these years? How many stick to it? They can't. This is meant for those who are genuinely interested, which is a very small percentage, very, very small. So, at all levels, even academy, there are people who've done 3 years full time. So many students. Where are they? Over the last 30 years. Few who have been able to stick to the spiritual path. Very few. Genuinely. Others are all good people for sure. Definitely better than the rest of human beings. They put in effort, but to remain committed to your spiritual growth, very difficult. Because it takes effort, time, and it's not pleasant in the beginning. Once you get established in it, there's no problem. You get it? So don't go by what you're feeling. That's the whole problem. Feeling. You go by what you understand to be right and wrong through knowledge. Got it? Clear? 22.
यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टः द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समसिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते.
Content with whatever is got unsought, rising above the pairs of opposites, free from envy, equanimous in success and failure, though acting, he is not bound. So here he talks about the harmony with reference to your environment, to the effects of what you're doing. So one is not depending on the fruit, one is internally satisfied. So each verse has a different emphasis, although they're all related. So here, first he said he's not interested, but when the fruit comes, what is his attitude? Content with whatever is got unsought. And that's why he's put in this very subtly, free from envy. So you must understand why he's suddenly brought in this jealousy in the picture. Off the cuff, right? Suddenly. Normally they use desire or fear or anger, things which are predominant. Here suddenly is brought in jealousy. Why? See, these are the subtle nuances, which you have to think if you really want to understand the scriptures. They make you think. Gita is nothing. You go to Upanishads. The whole thing is like a riddle, roundabout. Hmm? Yeah.
We have to answer, right?
Yeah.
Probably because they mean that when we receive the fruit, it might not be as good as like the other person may have, and so we are not to compare the fruit, like the results with.
Results. Correct. Good. See, what he's saying here is content with whatever is got, unsought. So, what is our attitude normally? Whenever you get something, there is a desire for more than what you've got. So, automatically, there's a jealousy towards those who have it. See how he brings it in. Free from envy. Why here? So, contentment is not just doing what ought to be done. That is supreme contentment. The test is when you get something, because you're doing something, there will be an effect. That attitude should go there also. As you put in the cause, so is the effect. I've just got what I deserve. You get what you deserve, not what you desire. So if you want to get something, you must deserve it through your action. Content with whatever is got unsought. Your focus was on the action, you weren't seeking it, but it came. There is no thought on what others have because your focus is on doing what ought to be done. And you may think this is innocuous, but you have no idea how much of your life is determined by what others have or what others perceive you. This whole envy is nothing but ego, status, comparison. So you go to buy a car, I'm giving a simple thing. Well, you should buy what you need. But my neighbor has a better car, how will it look? You're going to go buy a house, my friends have bigger houses. This is what all the debt, all the madness comes in. Stupid emotions with no basis in reason. Whole country is destroyed in India because of these weddings. One fellow does something, next fellow wants to make it better, right? Whole life they go on accumulating to show others. It's just unbelievable obsession. So nobody does any charity, nobody does any giving. It's just ego and envy on which your life is based. So imagine if you could be free from that and do what you ought to do in life. It's a fabulous life. Rising above the pairs of opposites. So the world is nothing but an endless procession of the dvandvas, heat and cold, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor, youth and old age, birth and death, heat, drought and flood. Everything you take, it is a constant pairs of opposites. So your focus should be on what is beyond the pairs of opposites. You're talking about pairs of opposites. That's the world. So your focus should be what lies beyond these pairs of opposites, which is your own self, the Atman within you, the consciousness. So if your focus is there, you are above the pairs. Your focus is on the world, you will go up and down. Because the world is nothing but change. One pair of opposite ends, the opposite starts. Night ends, day starts. Youth ends, old age starts. It's like that. It's just a procession. Equanimous in success and failure. That is doing what ought to be done. You're focused on the action. So the pair of opposite, success and failure, doesn't bother you. If you fail, you analyze why and focus on the right action again. Move on. So what if you failed? So what if you succeeded? You did the right cause, effect will comes. You succeed. You didn't put the right cause, effect won't come. You fail. So focus should be on the action either way. Though acting, you're not bound. Again, no further vasanas. So these three verses, fabulous. That's why I said in the beginning, it's not to tell you enlightenment, it's to tell you how you should function. And your life, everybody's life, is completely opposite to this. Affected by every little thing, constant comparison, agitation. When you don't have to be that. Got it? Clear? Shreyas?
Hari Om Gautamji. How do we handle the balance of, not getting complacent? Sometimes you look for inspiration. I fully understand. Everything you talked about, about the envy and the comparisons of how we sometimes call it keeping up with the Joneses. That's a challenge, yes. But at the same time, there's also an English saying that says, your IQ or whatever is the average of the 5 people you hang around with, and so on and so forth. So how do we not get complacent?
So according to you, don't hang around with complacent people. That's what you're saying. My sum total of my brain is talk about yourself. If the 5 fellows around me determine my intellect, I would rather commit suicide right now. Do you know the 5 people around me right now? What are you talking? And nothing to do with What that means is, whatever your vasanas, you will choose those people who are catering to your desires. So, like Shakespeare says, tell me your friends, I'll tell you who you are, right? You're a gambler, you'll be hanging around gamblers, right? Nothing to do with your, obviously, there's a merit in the saying. You will meet people who are compatible with your level because they cater to you. Person who wants drinks, will he come to a lecture like this or he'll go to a bar? It's as simple as that. So, complacency comes when you don't understand that the current condition of yourself requires improvement. You are happy with mediocrity. You understand? Like I was explaining in an earlier question, you're acclimatized to sorrow. It's like a complacency. I have a nice family. I have a nice job. I have a nice house. And this is complacency. You're living in it's like how in English they call pigs contentment. A pig is living in the mud, in the sewage, and it's quite happy about it. What can you do? So it requires an intellectual perception to see that what you're going through is very limited, temporary. You have to work for something higher in life. That shakes you out of complacency. So you're getting this knowledge. How can you be complacent? This knowledge is about enlightenment. That means you're not understanding anything. You should be jumping out of your seat. What can I do? What do I need to do from today onwards to try and grow as much as I can? So obviously none of us have understood. Just carrying on. Once a week we listen to something nice, It's called Vedanta. You impress your friends at the party. Oh, this guy is learning Vedanta. That's not what it's for, right? It's for that internal awakening. What am I doing? Such a temporary state. It's just passing by. Do you even realize? I mean, go back 20 years and today, how quickly it's passed. Or 30 years. I told you so many times. Joined the academy more than 30 years ago. It's 20 years old then. It's like a flash. I don't even know. So, how can you be complacent if you understand? Obviously, you don't understand. So, stay away from complacent people, number one, and get into this knowledge. To wake yourself out of your complacency. How can you be complacent? You obviously don't understand. See, it's like saying, I got bit by a rabid dog. How do I shake myself out of my complacency and go to the hospital? Now, what can you talk to a person there? What is the answer? Obviously, you don't understand what that bite can do to you. You can get rabies. You don't understand. If you understood, you'll drop everything and do that, right? You don't understand. That's the problem. I'm around people, I'm comparing myself to others, I'm doing this. Just wait till my daughter gets married, then I'll come to Vedanta. Or just wait till son comes out of college. All you don't know what you're talking. It doesn't strike you, it'll never strike you. It strikes you, you'll do something about it. So get up in the morning and read and understand what is going on. It's the only way. Anything else? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So are there any tricks to
Are there any tricks?
kick us out?
How many tricks I've given you? I'm out of tricks right now.
So we understand.
Kabira says that, कहना था जो कह दिया अब कुछ कहा न जाए. I told you again and again, now what to tell you? एक रहा दूजा गया नदिया लहर समाए. One is born, one is dying, like waves in the ocean. What else do you want to know? It's just a temporary state, and you're still asking. You don't understand. So, this is temporary. There's a permanent self. You have to get there. So, again and again, you have to reflect on this. That's the only way, right? There's no quick fix. Manasi vichintaya varam varam. Reflect again in your mind, again and again. That's why early morning, when there's no disturbance, the sattvic time, 5 a.m., got to get up and preferably do the e-learning. You read the whole, my guru has explained the whole Vedanta, verse by verse, 3-year course. Those of you who are serious, you should do that. If not, at least read. Read the Vedanta treatise in chapter 1. Read the Gita. We have it on YouTube from the first verse, right? Go through it again and again. It will hit you. If you're interested, it will hit you. And stay away from things which are not conducive for your spiritual growth. These two things you have to do. There's no other shortcut. I explained yesterday also, right? So you do something good and then you waste it all by indulgence in the same old things. Now that's the problem. You're not able to stay away and have a consistent program. So I really feel for all of you who are genuinely interested, but your environment is so unconducive. So you have to make the right environment for yourself with great determination. Mana Mada Gaja, he says. This mind is a mad elephant. Nibadhya Sarva Bhavena. With all your being, you have to control it to get to the Supreme. So it's not easy, right? The mind pulls you back again. Saurabh?
Yeah, Hayam Patanji, in a similar line, you try to focus on self-satisfaction and unselfish action, but somewhere towards at the end or towards while doing it comes always thought comes at what I get out from it, or selfishness is always ingrained so much. How you shake that out?
Selfishness is totally opposed to what this knowledge we are trying to do. So again, it's because of lack of understanding. So I was talking to somebody yesterday, they said, I went to pilgrimages, I said, for what? Ultimately, I got it out to ask for something for my family. Some problem he's going through, he wants it resolved. For that, he's going to pilgrimages after pilgrimages. So you go to this field also, like you said. Ultimately, you want something selfish for yourself, right? So obviously, you don't understand that's not what this is for. Vedanta is for spiritual development, which means being selfless, not selfish. So as long as you keep understanding the knowledge and you're aware of this, why would you let selfishness come? So whenever a selfish thought comes in your action, dismiss it and move back on to the purpose of that action. Right? If I am teaching you all here for your sake, if a thought comes I look at you and say, oh, what can I get out of Saurabh? I must dismiss that thought and think of how can I educate you, right? So similarly, you have to constantly fight the mind. That's the mind. What is the mind? The mind is nothing but a flow of thought. What can I get for myself? That is the mind. So you are trying to use your intellect to rise above that. No, there has to be a better way of living than just working for oneself. So you're working in a selfless field. This is Vedanta. So just keep gaining the knowledge. Correct? So ask yourself, where is the selfishness coming? And work on it. Dismiss it. I have nothing to do with it. Chitra, you had something?
Gautamji, just moving in continuation with the question that Saurabh asked, this thought came in my mind that this selfless action and a whole community practicing it successfully was done back in the day. But it only is successful if everyone else around you is having the same mentality, which is why, the invaders who came in, destroyed Nalanda, they didn't have this selfless mentality. So advantage was taken of that. So in continuing getting fruits out of your action, enjoying the action, so long as it's selfless, it can be detrimental to society if the environment around us does not share that. Is that true?
No, it's not true because you are equating selflessness to being passive. Who said that? So, just because you're selfless, you expect others to be selfless. They will come and destroy you if they are selfish. So, you got to protect yourself against them. Now, what does that have to do with anything? The whole Mahabharata war, that is why this Gita was written, to explain that everything you do, the intention is what matters. So, Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight a war, to destroy unrighteous elements, so that you can keep the selfless environment in society going. So it could mean fighting wars. People in India did not understand that after some time, became very passive. That is, just because they were passive doesn't mean Vedanta is teaching passivity. I'm equating it wrongly. So, and even here now also, you can't, just because others are selfish, what does that have to do with you? You be selfless to whatever extent you can. Hopefully others around you will be inspired. That's the best you can do. So get on to that at least. Vikram?
Gautamji, there is a question from Seamus. How do we prevent the desire for enlightenment from becoming a thought and or causing selfish thoughts? Is it even possible for the desire for self-realization to become a selfish thought?
See, the desire for self-realization itself means selflessness. Because to get self-realization, you have to dissolve all your selfishness. So how can you say the desire for self-realization is selfish? It's two opposites. While pursuing the path to the self, you can have selfish desires come in and obstruct it. That is different. But if you keep that pure intention to reach the self, that is selflessness. In fact, you need that desire because that desire is what displaces all the other selfish desires. That's how you evolve spiritually. But at the ultimate state, to reach the self, you have to give up that desire also, because that desire is still a thought. And self-realization is thoughtlessness. But that's a very high state. Don't worry about it now. First you get to that. That's why, see, later in the Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, some people say all desires should be renounced. And some people say no, yajna, dana, tapa should not be renounced, right? Selfless action. So Krishna says yes, selfless action should not be renounced. Everything else should be. How can you renounce everything? Then there's no action. Yajna, sacrifice, dana, sharing, giving, tapa, austerity, self-control. These are the three pillars. How can you renounce them if you want to grow? And you see today in the world, these three are completely gone. There is no concept of sacrifice. In fact, now we're getting into what is sacrifice. Yajna. It's the fulcrum around which your spiritual growth is based, is the capacity to sacrifice your ego and egocentric desires. Dana, sharing, giving, and tapa, self-control. Where is it in the world? It's just indulgence. There is no concept of control. There's only taking, there's no giving. Sacrifice, you can forget about it. There's only aggrandizement, no sacrifice. So you can do it only yourself. Don't expect the world to do it. You grow. Hmm. 23.
यतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य ज्ञानावस्थितचेतसः यज्ञायाचरतः कर्म समग्रं प्रविलीयते.
One devoid of attachment, liberated, muktasya, mind established in knowledge, acting for yajna, sacrifice, his whole action is dissolved. Now, this verse is the summary, very important. So, understand each concept. The first thing is mind established in knowledge. See, you must understand the crux. When you understand the higher, when you experience the higher, that gives you that supreme satisfaction, inspiration in life. You renounce the lower, devoid of attachment, means devoid of selfishness. You become liberated. It is dependence on the world that enslaves you. The moment you're independent, you're liberated. And if you are working for the higher, you are working on the principle of yajna, sacrifice. So every thought right now is, how can I serve my ego, my children, myself? So you are not giving that up. That is the problem. So if you do that with higher knowledge, your whole action is dissolved. All these desires and thoughts will go. Like mist before a rising sun. It's literally like that. So he brings in now the central theme, in fact, of the Gita. In fact, the central theme of Vedanta, of the Vedas, which is yajna, sacrifice. Because it is only by sacrificing your selfish interest, your selfishness, that you can grow spiritual. So that's why the fundamental ritual of the Vedas was the fire sacrifice. In fact, the first word of the Veda is Agni, fire. That's the first word, the first spiritual word that was written. That's what it means. His whole action is dissolved. Yes, Meenal, you had a question.
Hari Om Gautamji. So whenever the word yajna is used, does it indicate it means sacrifice?
Yes,
or it's used
yajna,
any other way?
yajna means sacrifice. Why you want to use it in any other way now?
No, I'm just asking through the Gita when they use the word
Yajna
yajna.
has always means sacrifice.
Sacrifice, okay.
In fact, public lectures are traditionally called Gita Jnana Yajna. Jnana Yajna means the sacrifice of wisdom. The object that is sacrificed can be different. It can be a physical object, it can be a knowledge, it can be any. Means, in other words, what you're sacrificing, what you're giving could be different, but sacrifice is sacrifice. In fact, these next few verses, these are the most, if not the most, one of the most subtle concepts in the whole Gita is coming up now. The 12 yajnas, where he's going to explain how we can make each aspect of our life into a sacrifice. That's the theme. Yes, iPhone. He doesn't even know he's called iPhone. Put his hand up. Shanti, S.
Namaste, Gautamji. My question, how do I then distinguish between dana, giving alms and charity, versus enabling? For example, I see a panhandler. He is there day in and day out. I feel for him. Am I enabling?
Then that is not giving. See, giving means you are helping the person. That is true giving, right? Now, if you know that the person is abusing your gift, how is it giving? That means you're doing it to satisfy your emotion. It is selfish. It is out of pity. Pity is a weakness. So, in pity, you give because it makes you feel better. You don't really care about the person. It's a very subtle difference. Compassion, you care about the person, so you use your intellect and make sure what you're doing benefits the person. First of all, is it your obligation? Second, how much to do? What is your capacity? Third, is it benefiting the other person? Simply giving somebody you know is taking advantage. I gave a beggar some money and he bought drugs with it. Oh, what are you asking? It doesn't mean anything. So, you first of all in giving, first principle is using your thinking. What is the effect that is happening on the other person? So
But one can't become analytical in every, like, how then the mind becomes very analytical. Am I helping? So where is the distinct?
So then give, why are you asking then? Now also you're analyzing, no? Why are you analyzing? Just keep quiet and give whatever you feel, keep quiet, do it. It's the same thing your pet does, your dog does. Whenever it feels like barking, it barks. When it feels like biting, it bites. It feels like mating, it mates. That is an animal. A human being, I'm not saying you should not have emotion, but you must understand what are you doing. That's all. No, why understand everything? Why ask? Why attend a class also? Whatever you feel. When you feel like attending, you attend. You don't feel like attending, don't attend. Would you go like that? So everything you do, there has to be the intellect backing it. There must be some understanding of what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not living a human life. That doesn't mean you stifle your emotion. See, you're equating it to that. We're not saying stifle your emotion, but make sure your emotion has the right outlet. So the flow of mind is like the flow of water in a river. Remember this example since you're new. The intellect is like the banks of the river. So Vedanta is not saying to dam the river and not let it flow. But the banks must be strong to guide the water flow, right? Otherwise, the banks are weak, the whole thing will flood. That's what is happening. The whole problem in the world is uncontrolled emotion. I hate you, so I want to kill you. You hate me, you want to. This is what you can't see everywhere. All the war and corruption, it's all uncontrolled emotions. Buddhinashat Ranashyati. Whole theme of the Gita is that your intellect is destroyed, you're gone. You're no longer a human. Right. So we'll do this in detail next time. And those of you who were not there yesterday, we had sent out an email. Next month is the auspicious occasion of Guru Purnima. Guru Purnima is where we salute the disciple, the teacher-disciple lineage, Guru-disciple lineage, which has been communicating Vedanta for thousands of years to humanity. So we use that as an occasion to remind ourselves of our growth, and secondly, what we can do to promote this knowledge. So as an institution, we promote this in the US through these lectures to the public and support the Vedanta Academy in India, which is the global home of this knowledge. So occasionally, twice a year, in fact, now and in the end, we send out a note for all of you to think about how you can help. So read the email, and whatever can be done, you're welcome to do it. So any questions, we will take it up on Wednesday. Otherwise, we'll continue with this next week. Hari Om.